Hello, and welcome to another forecast. And this one is about the full moon in Sagittarius, which is coming up on the 11th of June. And I'm going to share the chart with you in a moment. But I just really wanted to quickly touch in because I'm filming this just as we're hitting the first quarter in Virgo. And it dawned on me, not for the first time, but re-dawned on me how powerful the moon phases are, understanding them and working with them. And this has come from me working with them for many, many years. And normally I work pretty well within them, but I just hit an absolute slump after the last new moon in Gemini, which is my own sign. And then I was a little unwell. I just couldn't get motivated. I could hear the inner critic telling me to get up and get moving, even though I didn't feel great. And I had a sick child at home. And I just honored my knowing and my body. And I spent a couple of days in bed. I could hear the inner critic because she's not so easy to silence, is she or he? And anyway, point is that today I've woken up and I'm going, right, what shall I do? And it's that first quarter energy. So there are yin phases where we should be sort of in an ebb, in a creative kind of composting phase. And then there are yang phases when we should be moving into something, taking some kind of action in a doing phase. And a new moon is a doing phase, and a first quarter is a doing phase. And I was doing in the new moon, and then I dipped, and then I'm doing in the first quarter. And it doesn't have to be big things. It can just be a natural rhythm that you learn to run your life with, which normally I'm pretty good at. And now, because I've been practicing it for years, and sometimes I catch myself where I don't really notice that I'm doing it, but this one was like a battle. I had an internal struggle of, oh, I should be, shoulding ourselves. I should be doing more, doing more. I've got things to get done. And just giving myself that pause and honoring the rhythms, not only of the moon phases, but of my own phase that I was in conjunction with the moon phase. And today I woke up completely inspired to run a moon phases course. So if you are interested in that, it will be an online course. There will be a recording for those who can't make the live version of it. And it'll be run closer to the new moon in Cancer, because Cancer is the sign that rules the moon. And when we get to the new moon in Cancer, we will be ready to put into practice what I'm going to teach you in that workshop about the moon. Of course, I do a new moon and a full moon forecast every month, and these are the two big moon phases of the month, but there are 8 moon phases in total. So we're only kind of covering 2 in these forecasts, and I really want you to be able to drop a little deeper in and integrate it into your day to day. With that said, let me share the chart. And we are going to look, as I said, at the Sagittarius upcoming full moon. Is that showing? I think it is. Okay. Which is on the 11th of June. And I have set this chart up as per usual for where I live in the world, which is not going to be applicable to everywhere in the world. Okay. So I know I say this every time, but in case you're new here, this is a forecast of the energy of this full moon. And don't look at what the rising degree is for this unless you live in and around South Africa, where I'm from. Rather go to your own chart and say, okay, this new moon is happening, this full moon, is happening at 20 degrees of Sagittarius opposite the sun at 20 degrees of Gemini. You can see it here on the side, but you can also see it here in the chart. Here's the sun at 20 degrees Gemini and the moon at 20 degrees Sagittarius. And that's standard operating procedure. A full moon is the sun and moon opposite each other in the sky. A new moon is the sun and moon together beside one another in the sky. That's what they are. That's why we have that visual of the moon, because she herself doesn't actually hold light. The sun is she's reflecting the light of the sun, and depending on the angle away from the sun that she is, she can reflect more or less of the sun's light. Full moon, obviously, she is reflecting the full light of the sun, hence we see the full moon. So full moons are larger than life. They are these big, kind of blooming, fertile, celebratory, extroverted, bright kind of times of the month, but it is also going to lead us to be grandiose in whatever's going on. So if you're in a really good space, you're socializing with people you like, it's just going to be even better than usual. It's going to feel amazing. Versus if you are in a real depth of a depression or feeling completely dysregulated in your nervous system, then it's going to be extra that. Okay, so it's always important as we begin to feel that bubbling up inside of us when we get towards the full moon. And for many of us, you'll start to feel this at the gibbous moon, which is before full moon, that there's this like rush to the boil, because full moon is kind of like that boiling point. So are you in wonderful boiling point mode, or are you in a challenging boiling point mode? But we need to kind of feel into what's starting to come to the boil. And if that is rage or deep grief, how can I mitigate it? How can I manage these symptoms? How can I feel? Because the moon is all about feeling, emotional intelligence, and moods and needs. How can I feel what's going on here and find some level of compassion, self-love, self-care, balance, sociability, whatever it is that you need to balance yourself out a little. So this full moon, because it's in Sagittarius, it's also going to be kind of like fun and festive, extra. I mean, that's a full moon at its best, but Sag is that. It's a benevolent, gregarious energy, and Sag is ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter, the day before this full moon, has just stepped. He spends about a year in a sign. He spent a year in Gemini, and literally he's at 0 degrees and 19 minutes here of Cancer. So he's literally stepped into Cancer as we embark on this full moon. So it's a very different flavor for him. First of all, he loves to be in Cancer. So this is a nice thing for Jupiter. Cancer's the sign, aside from his own sign, that he is at his most happy, because he's very big and giving and generous, and he's about our belief systems. And he goes into sign of Cancer, which is this big nurturing, mothering energy, and he can be his larger than life self, and he can feed everybody and just be really a generous guy. In the sign he's just traveled through for the last year, Gemini, it's not his happy place because it's further from home being Sagittarius opposite Gemini. So Gemini is not the easiest place for Jupiter. That said, Jupiter is, by his very nature, a benevolent guy, a lucky planet, a giver. So sometimes it can be too much of a good thing. That's one area we may need to watch Jupiter. But for the most part, even a negative or a challenged Jupiter is not a bad thing. So for all the Geminis out there, we've had a year of Jupiter dancing in our chart, and we may have had these lucky breaks, these little wins, maybe big wins, things that have been going on. Now, Jupiter will leave Gemini for 12 years. He will only return on his next 12-year cycle around. And for this next year, we're going to experience Jupiter in Cancer. So if you are a Cancer, he's coming to your sign. If you're a Cancer rising, or any planets in Cancer. So for example, for me, I have Mercury in Cancer. So my Mercury is going to benefit a little bit more, say, than my Sun, Venus in Gemini benefited last year. And now maybe Mercury, that part of me. So again, as you learn your chart, you also go, well, I have many more parts. I'm not just a Gemini. You're not just a Sagittarius or a Pisces or a Taurus. You're also, where is your Sun? Where is your Moon? Where is your Venus? Mercury, blah, blah, blah. So obviously, when you start working with astrology, there's just so much. It can be very overwhelming. I just want you to remember what you remember. So if you just know I'm a Gemini, that means the sun was in Gemini when you were born, then work with Gemini. Once you've learned where your moon was or where your rising sun is, then you can start to work with that. So you're going to work gently. In my Moon Phases Made Simple course, we will definitely talk into each person's moon. Where is your moon, so that you can start incorporating that piece. And what's nice about the moon is because the moon goes around the whole zodiacal wheel in 1 month, it's a very quick feedback loop. So it's the quickest way to learn astrology is to start working with the moon. Even if you just take that one piece, the moon, it's going to start to help you to understand the archetypes, because first of all, the planets hold an archetype, and the moon is the archetype of the nurturer, the mother, of our emotional intelligence and our needs. Then we look at where is the moon in your chart? Is the moon falling in Sagittarius in your chart? And what does the archetype of Sagittarius mean that you need? So we could also say fire sign moons, earth sign moons, air sign moons. And for the scope of this forecast, I don't really want to get into that, but just to explain to you that there are many different levels and layers into which you can drop when starting to do self-evaluation, self-understanding, self-exploration. And within astrology, even though it may feel very overwhelming at first, there is a lot you can do slowly, gently, taking it piece by piece. In fact, I also do that in my Starry Studies group. I teach astrology piece by piece and then integrate that and then add another little piece. But anyway, this full moon is going to be this pull to expand, to learn more. We're still in Gemini season if we're in full moon in Sag, and any of our air signs, we really do need to watch to stay grounded, because the air signs can be quite dysregulated and ungrounded and a little bit disembodied. So get into your body. Sag also is like a wildfire, really wants to move super fast into everything, travel, explore, see the world, explore other cultural belief systems. Remember I said Jupiter's about belief, so that very strongly links into Sagittarius. Being a preacher, being a teacher, but are you being preachy rather than teachy? Like, don't stand on your pedestal and cast dispersions at people. Rather meet people at their level. Don't think you're better than. That's not the way to work with Sag, but it can be a shadow of Sag. So just keeping an eye on that. Bit of a know-it-all kind of energy at its loudest, maybe. And fundamentalist, can be quite a fundamentalist. So it is often like priests and prophets and whatever would be of this. And when you are very fixed in your belief system, this is how I have been raised, in this religion, in this political idea, whatever ideology, whatever yours are, if you are so fixed in them that you can't listen to the ideas and beliefs of others and be accepting of. So at its best, the high road of Sag is to be very open-minded and to look at all the different things. The low road of Sag is to be like, my way is the only way, and I'm better than you, and I know more. So those are the things, the themes you're going to want to look at, and then go to where is 20 degrees of Sagittarius in your chart. Is it in the first house of you? Is it in the seventh house of your relationships? That kind of thing. It'll give you a slightly more personal slant as to where in your life these kind of themes are going to be showing up. So that, and obviously there's the tug of war between the Gemini energy where the sun is and the Sag energy where the moon is. This little signature of Jupiter having just stepped into Cancer with Mercury in Cancer is also going to lead us to maybe notice some emotional things coming up, thinking about where we've been emotionally triggered in the past, and then like tending to that. Like, think of Jupiter as bringing his healing energy, his generous kindness to the old thinking that hasn't worked for you anymore. So again, if we're in this very learning polarity between Gemini, which loves to learn and is often known as like school learning, like younger learning, to Sagittarius, which is higher learning. When we're on that real pull between, I need to understand, I need to intellectualize. And interestingly, Mercury is the ruler of this sun and Jupiter is the ruler of this moon. So the two rulers of the big loud lights in the sky in this full moon point are sitting next to each other in Cancer. And while there might be an argument between sun and moon, sun saying, let's just do what we have to get done today, and moon saying, what about the bigger picture, and them having a bit of a lover's squabble about it, the two rulers of those planets in this lunation are sitting together in Cancer saying, how can we change something? Because if we do what we did, we'll get what we got. We keep having the same arguments. We keep having the same issues around this. How do we do something differently? How do we use our compassion and empathy, Cancer, and do something different? They can also be quite sentimental in Cancer. So there may be a lot of reflectiveness about feelings past, situations past, and how to do it a bit differently here. Then we have this very strong sextile to, oh, there goes the dog. I apologize. I can't pause this, unfortunately, otherwise I might. The very strong sextile to the 5-degree Venus in Taurus. Now, Venus had her retrograde between the two signs of Pisces and Aries. We've spoken about that over previous months, and it's taken her extra long to get through the sign of Aries that she normally would have taken a lot shorter with. But at this point, by the time we hit this lunation, she's moved into Taurus. And she is at home in Taurus. So it's like, oh, thank God, I don't have to be on a warrior, on a horse, going out to battle like this warrior goddess anymore. I can actually come home and I can lie on my chaise lounge and I can eat my delicious berries and I can just watch the sun setting. And if I want to, I can journal or I could paint or I could just be. And so she's regulating Venus, who is our values, how we love and want to be loved, and worth, self-worth, and what is valuable to us. So she's like, oh, she's exhaling, she's dropping into herself. And she is very much supporting the conversation with the nurturing that's coming up from Mercury and Jupiter here, while there's a slightly dysregulated feel between the sun and the moon, tug of warring each other in fire and air, big energies, okay? So we really want to lean in to those three personal planets that are in earth and water, because earth and water are yin. They are more feminine, they are more grounding, nurturing, consolidating, coming inwards. Whereas the air and fire element is more external, more yang, more go and do a thing. So we've spoken about this a lot in the last few years, but the outer planets, the modern outer planets, which is Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, are all moving signs within a few years. Pluto has now officially fully moved into Aquarius for a little bit now, and you can see Pluto here at 3 degrees 30, but has stationed retrograde, won't leave this sign again for 20 years, Aquarius. We also know that Neptune recently moved out of Pisces, where he spent the last 14 years. Yeah, I think so. Into Aries. So that's a big deal right now at 1 degree. And Saturn, who's not quite as slow as these outer planets, but is also the slowest that we can see with the naked eye, has also moved into Aries. So these two are having a very, very intimate and powerful dance that's going on, Saturn and Neptune, and they have very different ideologies. So it's an interesting dance. So these two are both in Aries, which is a fire sign. They both will go back into Pisces, but they are ostensibly beginning the new cycle. Not just a new cycle sign for them, which is big enough in itself, but a whole new cycle, because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. And then within about a month, under a month, I think it's the 8th of July, that Uranus, who's been 7 years in Taurus, is going to step into Gemini, air sign. So we've got Pluto in an air sign, we've got Neptune, Saturn in a fire sign, we've got Aquarius in the tail end of Earth, readying to step into air. This is creating a very, very big shift in our collective consciousness. We're going from a long-term period of, I mean, if we just took the fastest of those three outer planets, which would be Uranus, and he takes 7 years in a sign, but the others have been there longer. But let's even just say 7+ years of having these outer planets, which really changed the zeitgeist and the way the world's themes work in slightly different ways, each of them, but still. They're very slow, they're very progressive, they shift like those focal points in humanity. And they have been in grounding, earth and water, the reflective, intuitive, nurturing spaces for 7+ years, 7 big plus. I'm just going with the shortest cycle there. And they're all about to move into air and fire. And that is, or have already. And that is going to accelerate. And I mean, is there anyone among us who is not wondering how we already are in June? Because the years are going faster and faster. It feels like the weeks disappear in a day. It's intense right now. The acceleration is something we can't deny. And a lot of that is about this outer planetary shift. So if we then realize that at this particular full moon, we're feeling that, we're feeling the intensity of that. I mean, like I say, Uranus, we're already feeling his shift because he's so close to the edge. We already have the other two outer planets and Saturn in fire and air. But our personality planets, the personal planets, and Jupiter, who's not a personal planet, that are holding us really tightly right now are Venus in Taurus and Mercury in Cancer, and that Jupiter is supporting as well. So really holding on to the planets that are trying to keep us in our body, true to our own hearts and emotions, stay grounded, recognize in your body. Does that feel like a yes or a no? Where is the resistance? Where is the fear? So it's really, really an important time to focus on just staying in your body and your emotions and your heart. Recognize everything going on around you, which may feel crazy and chaotic, but keep regulating your nervous system and coming back to your center. I think that's like the biggest thing I can say to everybody. We also have Mars finally getting near the end of his very long transit through Leo, because he too did that double signed retrograde between Leo and Cancer, and so took particularly long through both archetypes. And he's finally also coming towards the end of that cycle. So that's something. It's going to feel like, I think, a relief when we get out there, and we might be able to be a little more detail oriented when Mars moves into Virgo. All the stuff that's been going on, and we've been struggling maybe to get that momentum because we've ebbed and flowed and we've shot off in a direction and then realized we had to go back. Possibly in Virgo, Mars in Virgo will help you to just kind of consolidate. So at this new moon, you might be starting to feel a full moon. You might be starting to feel the irritation of all this like bigness, fastness, too muchness, and just be feeling like, oh, I need a system, I need a checklist, I need a structure. You know, that might be something that you're feeling quite strongly at this particular lunation. Anyway, I think I have gone on quite long enough for this forecast, so I'm going to stop the share. And very, very sorry if you can hear my dog wooing in the background. And thank you very much for being with me. Please like, share, follow, and subscribe to keep this moving forward. And if you're interested in my Moon Phases Made Simple workshop, then please do hit me up with a message and I will keep you posted as soon as I have. It's just forming. It just started forming today. I just felt the urge to share. I mean, I've taught moon phases before, but this is something that's just emerged for me. So happy full moon, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.